Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Groove right here on Northwest Access TV. I'm your host, as usual, Nick Mumley. Alongside me, Dustin Tanner.
Hey, Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty great as you move your coffee there.
Well, I mean, I
out
don't
of
want
the shot.
it in your shot, so it's like by putting it in here, like it's in my shot, but it's my coffee, so it kind of makes sense.
What kind of coffee is it?
It is a iced.
Gross.
It's an iced caramel coffee with milk and cream and no sugar.
Wow. That's
milk
cool.
for the cooling, cream for the flavor. I do that. I discovered that in hot coffee, how milk would cool it down and cream would make it taste better.
Coffee is about the worst drink that you could ever have. But I digress. We have a fun show planned for you tonight. A lot to go over. We have a guest joining us later. But the most important part, we're back in our Monday night slot at 7 o'clock for the first time in what feels like about 10 years.
Well, here's the thing. Don't jinx it. We're back tonight. As far as the future goes, not sure, but we're back.
We're back for the foreseeable future. Monday night, 7 o'clock. We are here. It's light outside still. It's a good time to be alive, even though it snowed this morning. Spring's coming. I love it. But racing is in full swing at this point. We're 6-7 races into the Cup Series season now. Denny Hamlin won at Texas yesterday in a race that I thought was a little bit better than I expected. You know, we talked down about Texas all week long, or all show long last week, and I think the race was really not that bad. It was a Texas race, but it wasn't bad for a Texas race.
I disagree with you, but it's okay.
We'll get into that later on. NASCAR, we talked about this last week as well. NASCAR making dramatic changes to the 2020 schedule. That was released on Monday. We kind of gave you a little bit of a preview with what we thought was going to happen last Monday, and then they went out on Tuesday and released the schedule. So, you know, a lot went on there, a lot more changes than we anticipated.
Yep.
Highly debated. I think there's a lot of good moves, maybe one bad move.
I think we both agree on what the bad move is, too.
Yeah, we'll get into that later, but, you know, overall, I think it's great that they changed the schedule up. The signs pointing to NASCAR, Steve Phelps wanting to make changes, so that's really important. And then local news, we haven't really had a whole lot of local stuff recently because there's been so much snow on the ground. But the American-Canadian Tour kicked off their season on Saturday afternoon down in Richmond, Virginia at the famous Richmond Raceway. And Joey Polewarczyk Jr. Of New Hampshire won that race. He'll join us at 7:30 to talk about the win and, you know, what he's got coming up this year as we, get ready to kick off the local season here with racing in Vermont, New York, New Hampshire.
Yeah, definitely. So, it's fun to see.
Let's get into it here, though, as we start off, as we do usually with the Cup Series at Texas. Dustin, we came into this one last week saying, okay, you know, this was going to be a forgettable race. There wasn't really a whole lot to expect out of this. I think we were both really harsh on this race. I think it was not really all that bad. There was really good racing in this.
I think it was there. So the racing was the best it's been at Texas in a while. However, the racing still wasn't great in my opinion. It was still kind of boring. It still didn't feel like a normal NASCAR race. I took a nap halfway through too.
Okay. I missed the first stage because I was working, but I got there for the second stage. And
I missed the second stage because I was sleeping after Ryan Blaney took the lead, which was not a good idea because then he blew an engine. Penske had some problems.
Penske did have a rough race.
But, you know, it was a decent race. I like the strategy aspect of the races, but still we're getting no cautions because these cars are too easy to drive at this point. And I like the idea of cars that are harder to drive, and it's just not happening yet so far.
Yeah, I was noticing that too over the weekend. I told you about it. I hopped on iRacing for the first time in a while over the weekend, and just driving a Cup car at Michigan, and I was like, man, this thing is a lot easier. I either got really good at this without doing it, or these cars got a lot easier to drive. And sure enough, I go to the exterior view of the car, and they had the new package set up on the car. So.
Is that what you said to me? Because I think you said a completely opposite thing to me. I thought you said to me, the cars suck now.
It was easy to drive, but that didn't make it fun because I was just driving around Charlotte wide open. And
I can't quote what you said to me on TV, but you did not say anything about. No. You said a little something different, but it's just not fun anymore on iRacing.
But I think that that goes to what you're saying, though. My point in bringing that up is that, we're not going to see accidents or cautions in these races. It's going to be just flat out racing, which is good to an extent. But, I think that, racing purists are going to be okay with no cautions and just racing throughout the entire entirety
but I'm not
event.
a racing purist, personally. I like cautions guy.
Right, that's exactly what I'm saying is, a vast majority of the fans that are going to tune in to watch these races are watching for cautions and wrecks. And, I hate to be the guy that, gives Tony Stewart the opportunity to answer my question is, we should just make a figure eight and, turn half the field backwards until everybody's crashed out. But I think that that's a factor. I really do, because, you've just got to play to the fan base here. You've got to, while it is a sport, you've got to, play to the fans. And, last year, while the racing wasn't really all that great, there was more, danger, edgier seat action, I think, a lot of times than there was this year. Now it's, there's not really that. The racing is there, but the chance of, a big accident at any given moment is kind of gone away, it feels like, because we haven't seen any real crashes since Daytona. And, I just don't think that that's great for the sport in the juncture that it is right now. I think, down the line, if NASCAR is putting 200,000 people in the seats again for these big races, then, that's different.
Yeah, no, I think when you think about it, I like the harder to drive cars. But on the other hand, a good thing is that teams are saving money this year, right?
Yes.
Teams are getting a chance to not have to bring as many cars to the track because you're not crashing as many times, which is good. But, slower package, slower aero, not really a fan of it. However, I am a fan of strategy. And talking about the strategy, Denny Hamlin had a really good strategic race.
Even though he had 2 penalties of this race, he came back. He put the strategy right. This was a lot of fun to watch with the tire management, fuel management, all that, especially at the end, because it was green flag runs. Kyle Busch had to pit super out of sequence there after hitting the wall about 15, 20 laps before everybody else came in. And there was a little bit here where I was sitting there saying, okay, Kyle Busch, this might have worked out for him because he might just get out in front of everybody else. It didn't work like that at the end of the day, but strategy is a lot of fun. Once again, that's another racing purist kind of thing.
But here's the thing, going on the race's purist point, is that the tires didn't wear. That was really disappointing. That tires could go 80 laps and be just as fine as lap 1.
Yeah, you don't want to have that.
I think one of the things we were promised with this package was that tire wear will be a factor. You'll see comers and goers, and it did not feel like tire wear was a factor. So I was woefully disappointed about that.
Yeah, I mean, if these, mile-and-a-half tracks are going to succeed, you can't be running more than 45, 50 laps on a set of tires before you have to come in and change them. 80 is just way too much. That's almost a third of the race, and, you just can't have that. So it's, I think that it would be a good thing. They should, go to Charlotte, go to Texas, go to Atlanta and just run some tire tests. And find a good tire that fits the package, because I think if you throw in that extra factor, then you have a chance to make these races a lot more exciting than they have been.
Yeah, no, I think if you made the tire wear actually tire wear good, the Goodyear, they take a lot of pride in tires, and a lot of tires blowing up, but we need a softer tire now.
Yeah. So there was an interesting mixed bag of results in this one. Daniel Suarez and Eric Jones each earned top 5s, I believe, for the first time this season. And so they did well. Jimmy Johnson got his first top 5 of the year, finishing 5th. Best run for him in a really long time. He won the pole for this race. He ran, 10th place most of it, but, got up there at the end. Jimmy Johnson, we kind of counted him out last week, saying, okay, this is a Hendrick problem, not as much a Jimmy problem, but, he just doesn't know how to drive bad cars. Do you think that this was a, kickstart for his season in this race?
So I want to mention one thing first before I get into the fact of the Jimmy kickstart. Guess how many points position Eric Jones gained this weekend by finishing 4th?
Probably a lot.
No, he lost 2.
Really?
He lost 2. Eric Jones lost 2 points positions. He went from 14th to 16th because he finished a position behind Daniel Suarez. So, Suarez gained 2. The biggest gainer in points this week was Michael McDowell, who had an astonishing run as well, but he finished 15th, but he was in the top 10 almost all day. This was the race Jimmy Johnson needed. Ooh, boy. This is the most laps he led since 2017, I believe. Yep. So it was very nice to see the new sponsor that signed up for a full-year deal get some TV time.
Yeah, Johnson led more laps in the Texas race than he did in the entire 2018 season.
That's kind of shocking. Good race for him. We'll see if it's the kickstart he needed because, sorry, I'm tired. Oh, wow,
long day in the Milton IT department.
I wake up at 6 o'clock every morning, Nick. Okay. Jimmy Johnson, this is our 7th race. This is his 3rd top 10. Yeah. He's been having a decent year where, 9th at Daytona, 8th at Phoenix, 5th here. So it's good to see. I think Jimmy Johnson is trending upward. I think for the first time in a while, Johnson's trending upward. I think for the first time in a while, Hendrick Motorsports actually showed some speed. Now, the question is, what does the next month hold? Because the next month is a wild card. You have Bristol, you have Richmond, you have Dega. These are 3 races that you don't know. And if I'm Hendrick Motorsports, I want to see somebody. I want to see somebody that's not Joe Gibbs or Penske win one of those races. Because the last time Joe Gibbs or Penske didn't win a race was Texas of last year of Kevin Harvick, and that win was encumbered. So,
do you think Chevy can win a race this year that's not at a super speedway?
Not on raw speed. I don't think they can win a race on raw speed. I think they can win a race at maybe Watkins Glen again with Chase Elliott or short track or Daytona, but I don't think they're going to put it in victory lane this year.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think Chase Elliott is going to be up there to try to find a way. I think Kurt Busch is the other driver with a chance. Kyle Larson has taken another step backwards this year. I think it's time for him to move on from Chip Ganassi. I think that ship has kind of sailed. He's taken, ever since the Target sponsorship left 2 years ago, Kyle Larson has been
I think it's hard for Kyle Larson because Kyle Larson doesn't bring a paycheck.
Right.
And this is the thing where Chip Ganassi has the advantage over him because let's look at the spots where the drivers don't bring a paycheck right now. You got, name a spot where a driver doesn't bring some type of paycheck off the top of your head. Boyer's seat?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Boyer.
Joe Gibbs, they all bring sponsorship.
Yeah.
Every single one. The one that doesn't bring the most sponsorship.
Jones doesn't bring a whole lot of sponsorship.
But Jones brings Toyota.
Right.
Jones brings Toyota and Jones brings Craftsman now and all their brands. So there aren't many better rides out there for Kyle Larson unless somebody wants to take a chance. And that maybe Kevin Harvick in a couple of years, you never know. But it's hard to say Kyle Larson needs to move on when there's not really a place he can move on to. And when, Kurt Busch has proven that Ganassi car, 2 times Kurt Busch hasn't finished in the top 10 this year. So I don't know if it's the car. It might be the driver at this point.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I think that, it's a completely different situation. 2 years ago, I think Kyle Larson even went out, won 4 races in 2017, just missed out on the championship 4. I think, 2018 was his year to kind of, emerge from that, not only bring Chip Ganassi up to a top team, but, to win 4 or 5 races again. And, he laid an egg. He had a few really good performances, Darlington especially last year, that just didn't pan out for him. But he's got to figure it out fast because, it's been a year and a half now since he hasn't won a race.
He needs to get a win.
Since he's won a race. So, he needs to win right now. They need to get some momentum back. Another frustrating race for them at Texas and, blowing a tire and all that. But,
blowing a tire and then blowing what I have to assume is an oil line. Oh, man, that was an ugly, ugly hit. That was bad.
Not fun at all. But moving on here, we saw Joe Gibbs Racing dominate this one. All 4 of their cars ran up front at some point in the day. Kyle Busch probably should have won this race if it wasn't for, his whatever he had go wrong with his car with about 50 or so laps to go, 50, 60 laps to go there. But we saw Eric Jones get a top 5. Denny Hamlin obviously winning the race. So, and Martin Truex Jr. ran top 10 all day, ran top 5 most of the day, ended up top 10. So they dominated this race. They now have the lead. So we've seen 7 races so far. JGR's won 4, Penske's won 3. Who's got the upper hand here? Who's a team that you think has a chance to kind of get in there?
The team that I think has a chance to get in there is obviously Stewart-Haas Racing. Stewart-Haas Racing has been the 3rd fastest team. Daniel Suarez proved it in qualifying. Daniel Suarez proved it in the race.
I think Almirola is their number 1 driver right now.
I said this a couple times around the season starting that, hey, Eric's the second best driver in that camp behind Kevin Harvick, and I got roasted for it on the NASCAR Reddit, and everyone was like, no, Eric's not great. Eric's blah, blah, blah.
He's finished top 10 in just about every race.
I'm just telling you, like, Eric Almirola is one of the better drivers in the sport. Just saying it, like.
Once again, goes to show how bad the petty rides are.
Oh, man, just like top 10. Eric's a good driver, so. I'm not shocked to see him do well. I am shocked that Stewart-Haas hasn't won a race yet.
Yeah.
With 7 in, I would think they would get 1. I don't know if they're going to get 1 this weekend. It feels like it's going to be another Kyle Busch win this weekend because, God hates us. Or Brad Keselowski. But it's interesting to me because okay, let's look at the points for a second. Gibbs, Stewart-Haas, Penske, Stewart-Haas, Penske, Gibbs, Penske, HMS in 9th place with Chase Elliott, and in 10th place, Kurt Busch. So, you think the only other team that's got a chance of running fast, I believe, is going to be Stewart-Haas. Maybe Kurt Busch can elevate Chip Ganassi just enough.
Chip Ganassi's got the talent to get there. I think that, they have they have what it takes to get there. I think, they are right behind Stewart-Haas. It's just about kind of putting it all together right now. Kurt Busch running really well this year. We've talked about it. Kyle Larson.
Kurt Busch is a dark horse for this week, I think.
He won the last Bristol race. So
I know. It's weird saying that he's a dark horse this weekend.
You almost can't call him a dark horse, but at the same time you can because Chevy's just been so bad this year. I think that this is one of those deals where if everything starts to go the right way for Chip Ganassi, they can challenge those guys. Maybe put a guy in the championship at the end of the year. Still a long ways out. But they've got work to do right now. Kurt Busch has got something going for that team right now. Kyle Larson's got work to do, but I think they can get there. Stewart-Haas, though, I think I'd have to agree with you, is that 3rd team at the moment. One more question here before we move on to the schedule. Do we think that Penske and Gibbs will sweep the Final Four right now?
I would put money on it. I would put money on it in the sense of I only see 2 drivers, Kevin Harvick and maybe Kurt Busch, that could sneak their way in there. Just looking at points right now, Kevin Harvick would be in there, but I don't think Eric could pull off the win. I don't know, but I asked you this a couple weeks ago. It was Gibbs and Penske versus the field. What do you take? And at this point, every week it looks like it's going to be Gibbs and Penske.
It's tough to take the field when really all that you have for the field is Kevin Harvick at this point, because there's just nobody else out there. I think Eric Almirola might be that second guy behind Harvick, maybe Kurt Busch in there as well. But like I said, they have work to do to get to that point. And then when you look at what Gibbs has, Gibbs has 2 top drivers. Now we're considering, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch make the championship 4. Then you got Martin Truex back there. And then with Penske, you got Ryan Blaney back there as well. I think, there's a chance that they could get the top 6 spots.
Ryan Blaney is sneaky, having a really good year.
Ever since I called him out, he's been really good this year.
But, he had that engine problem. But I think Ryan Blaney could have won that race at Texas if it wasn't for the engine problem. But he does this thing when he gets enough stage points where you don't really realize when he doesn't have a good finish to a race. So Ryan, I don't know. I think it might be a sweep between Gibbs and Penske because Denny Hamlin is having a great year. Yeah. Denny Hamlin is the second guy in that camp behind Busch right now.
Well, I think Hamlin realizes that he needs to have a great year in order to keep that 11 car because there's people chomping at the bit behind him in the Xfinity Series for Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota.
Well, I think we're at that point where it's like, all right, they're going to have to make a second car in the LFR camp. Because LFR basically came out, Levine Family Racing, Matt DiBenedetto, 95, basically came out and said, we were going to go with 2 cars. We were going to go with Suarez and an unnamed driver, but then that fell through. So I think what's going to happen is that unnamed driver is going to be Christopher Bell next year. It's obvious.
You're probably right. So, we'll see where that goes. But we got to move on here to the NASCAR schedule that was released. 2020 series schedule for the Cup Series is out. A few of the changes we discussed last week were confirmed. Phoenix is the new championship race over Homestead, Miami. What were the other ones? Atlanta is moving to the 5th race of the year, the West Coast Swing, starting immediately after Daytona. That's a good one. And the doubleheader at Pocono as well. So in July, I believe, or June or July, there's end of June, there will be a Saturday Cup race at Pocono and then a Sunday Cup race at Pocono, back-to-back. No details on, whether or not one will be a Roval. We talked about that last week. Probably not going to happen. Logistics-wise, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Probably just going to be a Pocono 1000, like Dustin's been cheering for.
I want it 1000. The 24 hours at Pocono, put lights on the cars and have them go to the engines blow.
That would
do it. You won't, cowards. Awesome. You won't.
So there were more changes though that weren't leaked or rumored. In advance of the schedule coming out there. The first one, and I think a big one here, is that Daytona, the July race at Daytona, the Pepsi or the Coke Zero 400 now.
What type of backwards pageantry is this race going to be? Oh my gosh. I love it. I want to say I like it, but over under 10 cars survive that race next year.
Oh man!
The under is tempting.
I have to say over, but not by much.
Because looking at it now, the July 4th race, because it is your last plate race to get in, so it's always a little more intense.
Yeah.
But I'd say 20 cars are running at the end of the July Daytona race on average.
But now they've moved Daytona from July 4th weekend. Now in 2020, it'll be there for 60 years. This upcoming race, I believe, is the 60th running of the July race at Daytona, or 60th, I believe. My MVU math, as usual.
Yeah, bud.
But they're moving it from July 4th to late August for the last race of the regular season. The playoffs will be decided after the race at Daytona, which, will probably make for an absolute wreckfest, or everybody's going to take it easy until the last 10 laps.
I think it's going to be an absolute wreckfest, because what you're going to have going into that race at Daytona is you're going to have, we'll call it the top 12 are going to be locked in.
Yeah.
So, the top 12 are going to try to take it slow, but then anybody 13th to 30th is going to be looking at that race as a must-win. Think of it from RPM standpoint.
Yeah.
Bubba's good on short or restrictor plate tracks. That could be a must-win. Think about Germain Racing.
Just like what they almost got in with Eric Almirola a couple years ago.
Germain Racing. Well, they did get in because he won Daytona. That it was rain delayed.
Okay.
But Germain Racing with Ty Dillon, Roush Fenway with Ricky Sten. You thought Ricky Stenhouse put cars into the wall last July. You just wait till next year, bud.
Yeah, this might be a race that you absolutely have to go to, but also might be a race that starts at 7 o'clock at night and goes to 3 in the morning.
This might be a race where, by the time it gets over, there are going to be 8 cars.
Very similar to this year's Daytona 500.
Eric Jones just bumming around,
Right.
Alex Bowman who didn't get to, it's going to be a bunch of randos, and it's going to be some guy who wins and get that 16th spot, and then it's going to be dramatic. I love it.
Corey LaJoie is going to win to make the playoffs. Oh boy,
wow.
That would be something else. Another change is that Martinsville is going to get a night race here. A better date on the schedule. They're now Mother's Day weekend in 2020, and it's a night race in that spring date. Is this as big of a race as Bristol under the lights now?
I mean, people have been clamoring for a Martinsville race under the lights for years.
We clamored about it last week.
I think everyone's wanted to see it, and I think moving that date back in the spring, I think it's a wonderful idea too, because That date is perfect for Atlanta. For Martinsville,
it won't snow at Martinsville
you're still in hit and snow-wise, you're still in hit and miss territory. By moving it back to Mother's Day, it's going to be a much warmer race. It'll be a much fun race. I don't think it's as big as the Bristol night race, especially after the move they made to the Bristol night race. But I think it's the second biggest night race of the year, maybe third biggest night race of the year, behind Bristol and Daytona.
And then they also restructured the first round of the playoffs. So Dover is out of the playoffs. Phoenix loses their spot, or well, Homestead, I guess, loses their spot in the playoffs. Phoenix lost their usual spot to go to the championship race. So Darlington and Bristol are the races added to the playoffs, the first round of the playoffs. So we're going to go like this. The last race of the regular season is Daytona. And then after that is Darlington, throwback weekend, first race of the playoffs. And then Bristol night race. And then Richmond, the night race at Richmond. And then the Bristol night race is a cutoff race for the first round.
Well,
so
what
4 straight night races.
Let's back up. Let's back up for a little bit. So the schedule is Daytona, West Coast swing, Atlanta, Homestead, which gets moved into that spot, to that 7th spot,
which is awesome.
I love.
Going to Florida in March is going to be great.
Going to Florida in March is going to be great. Then you go to Texas, then you go to Bristol. Yeah. Then you get off. Then you go to Richmond, Talladega, Dover, Martinsville, All-Star race. I love that slate in the beginning. And, we go to the playoffs, and it is, where is it? It's going to be Dover. So this is the run-up to the playoffs. Michigan, fast track. Watkins Glen, road course. Dover,
always a lot of fun.
1 mile monster. Daytona.
Dover, they need to make it night.
I don't think they have lights, but I think Dover. Dover as an August 23rd race, the race before the Daytona. I think that's perfect for Dover.
Yeah, it's better for Dover than having the Cup race. I think it kind of heightens things a little bit because it's kind of like people at Richmond, the Richmond playoff race last year, where people were kind of freaking out because the Roval was right after that. They had no idea what to expect. I think going to Daytona as the last race of the regular season, like you said, this is going to be a complete wild card race. You should, almost go into it
double down and try to win Dover.
Right. That's going to make Dover that much more important. And knowing when you're, probably going to get wrecked out at Daytona, there's probably going to be, a fourth of the field left in that race by the end of it.
And then that very first race is Darlington, and I love it. That's awesome. It still falls right around Labor Day weekend, too. I think it's the weekend after, or I don't know what day Labor Day falls on, but I love the idea of going to Darlington for that first playoff race.
And, Darlington, it should be, because Daytona's August 29th, so I guess that would be Labor Day weekend.
Yep, which means you can do the special schemes and everything. Then you go to Darlington.
And then you go to Darlington.
That playoff field.
Man, that's just fun. I cannot wait for the playoffs.
The playoff is just going to be so stacked because it's,
the
Darlington,
cutoff races.
Richmond, cutoff at Bristol, which will just be so.
It's going to be insane. And the next cutoff race is at the Roval. And the next cutoff race is at Martinsville.
The idea of the cutoff races being short track, road course, short track, that's just going to be
That is
so
what
much
the
fun.
fans have been begging for
and
the
last
only
10
years.
3 1.5 milers in the 10 race playoff, which is Las Vegas, which was
a good race last year.
And then Kansas, which is always
Kansas is meh, Texas is meh. But other than that, the other 8 races of this playoff format, the playoff schedule is just super exciting. I can't wait for it. I'm hoping I want to get to at least one of the Darlington, Bristol, Richmond races. Mm-hmm. That would be a lot of fun for the playoffs. I think Phoenix is going to be fun there. Homestead, not being in the playoffs, I think Homestead should have gotten the date that Phoenix used to have. I think Homestead still should have been in the playoffs.
Oh, I came around on it after we debated last week.
I'm okay with it. Phoenix is only under contract for next year as the championship race.
O'Donnell has said that it is going to be a Rovaling,
Rovaling. Don't scare everyone by saying a Roval will be the championship
That'd
race.
Be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a rolling type of thing where you can make your bid, and I like that. I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I think that's what needs to happen. And like I said last week, you need to reward these tracks that spend money We just saw Phoenix put in the huge renovations. They, they put in all this money into the track. Now they're getting rewarded. It's an incentive for these other tracks. Look at what Talladega is doing with their track right now. Richmond just put a lot of money into their facilities. Now they've got a playoff race for the second year in a row. I think Talladega, as scary as that kind of sounds, I think Talladega very likely could be the 2021 date for the championship.
That would be one heck of a race. That would be... What is the strategy for that? Do you just go in and try to wreck everybody if you're in the Final Four?
I don't know. I don't know how that would go. But boy, that would be exciting. Dale Jr., he's talked about how he wants... He talked about, Dale Jr., the, leader of this sport, when he talks, everybody listens. He said he wants the championship race to be at Daytona as well as the Daytona 500 to be there. What are your thoughts on that real quickly?
Let's talk about that after we get off our interview.
Well, so we will move on here real quickly to our guest for tonight, Hudson, New Hampshire's Joey Polewarczyk. He won the ACT Commonwealth Classic at Richmond on Saturday afternoon, 65 laps, the first ever trip to Richmond for the ACT. And Joey joins us now. Joey, how's it going tonight?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming on with us tonight. Joey, you've won at New Hampshire before in the ACT. You've also won the Milk Bowl. Winning at Richmond now, how much, where does this win rank for you personally?
It's right up there. I've been very fortunate to have won some of these races, like you just mentioned, Loudon, the Milk Bowl, when Airborne was pavement, International 500. We've been very fortunate through our career, but man, Richmond is obviously you watch NASCAR run there, and I used to, when I was younger, play on my computer, race on a racing game all the time, and to actually go there and just to drive there and get a chance to race there was pretty awesome in itself. But to come away with a win was pretty unbelievable. It ranks right there at the top.
So you mentioned the NASCAR aspect. Is it intimidating to race at Richmond knowing it's the same place that the stars of NASCAR race twice a season?
It's definitely in your mind. It's awesome to think of that, but it's cool. Like the first thing we did when we got there was we walked the track, and you think back to, because Richmond's been around forever, and you think of Dale Earnhardt making laps around there, and Darrell Waltrip and Jeff Gordon and all these guys that have raced there, and you've watched, and to get a chance to just be there and be at the facility and walk around the track and kind of picture that in your mind, it's pretty cool. And then like I said, to race there and win, it was unbelievable.
Now, you started fourth in the race. It was a relatively short one, just 65 laps in the future. Did you have a plan to get to the front, or did you just take what you got and just work your way to the front as the race went on?
Yeah. Well, the good starting position definitely helped us out quite a bit. But our plan was kind of to I didn't really want to set the pace because I knew we had a good car. We had a good car in practice and in qualifying. So I didn't want to set the pace. I wanted to sit in the top five and kind of ride for a little bit, because 65 laps is short, but it's a bigger track than we normally run on. So it definitely and plus you're going such higher speeds than we normally run on, and it's a lot of wear on an 8-inch tire, which is relatively small for a stock car. So I wanted to try to kind of conserve what we had, but at the same time, I really couldn't, because I got to second, and then Nick Sweet was leading at the time, and we had a restart. And Wayne Helliwell, he had a really good long run car, and he was catching us. Luckily, we built up a pretty big lead, but it was just kind of one of those things. I wanted to conserve, but I had to go hard at the same time.
So you mentioned that final restart. The restart came with 25 laps to go. How'd you hold off those guys behind you and finish it?
It was tough. Especially Wayne. I knew Wayne was good, but we kind of had opposite cars. My car was really good on the takeoff, and Wayne's was better on a longer run. So we had that restart with 25 to go, and he actually got in front of me once, but I was able to get back by him. And then I knew he had a longer run car, so I just tried to run hard laps every single lap, those last 25 laps. And he was coming at the end, but luckily we had enough of a gap to finish it off.
So, no secret, running a race in March is a little bit, not what we do up here in the Northeast, obviously. Did that create any bigger challenges, preparing the car for such a big race this early in the year?
I mean, they announced this race, pretty much right when the racing season ended last year in October, or it was at least in the talks of it. But I mean, it makes it that much harder because I think everyone that went to this race had most of the time in race season, you have a week to get your car ready. It doesn't matter if you wreck it or if you have an easy week the week before, you're kind of pressed for time. For this race, everyone kind of had the whole winter to get their stuff, the best they could, to get their bodies looking the best that they could, and really get their cars prepared. And that's what we did. We have a couple different cars that we race, but this is the only one we focused on. We haven't even really touched any of our other cars. We just wanted to get this car right, and it all worked out. So I think everybody was amped up and ready to go. It's been a long off season, and racing up here is just around the corner. So it kind of was nice to get everything back in the swing of things.
So yeah, like you said, racing is not too far away for us up here. What's the plan for this 2019 season? You coming up to Vermont, racing at Thunder Road at all this year?
Yeah, definitely. We'll be up there for sure. We don't have 100% sure what our schedule is going to be yet. It's kind of a pick and choose races right now. But I know we'll definitely be there for the Memorial Day Classic, and we'll also be there for the Milk Bowl. And Bubba Pollard will actually be driving one of our other cars for the Milk Bowl. So. A lot of exciting things going on this year. We'll definitely be there more than once.
And now, I do want to ask you one more question before we get you out of here. You mentioned Bubba Pollard coming up. He's going to be racing for you in the Milk Bowl this year. You've also helped out Tony Stewart before in the past. I remember that race way back when I was really young. What's the best driver you've raced with? A guy that you've really looked up to, that either you've helped or just raced against?
Honestly, one of my toughest competitors, a guy that we've had, disagreements at times, but we always race hard and everything. It's got to be Wayne Halliwell Jr. I mean, we've raced. He actually used to drive for my dad when I was a kid, so I would have been between the ages of 8 to 12. He drove my dad's late model at Lee Speedway, and so I kind of grew up watching him drive my dad's cars and wanting to. And I was racing go-karts at the time, so I always kind of looked up to him. And now, man, we've had so many battles, whether it be on the ACT tour, points battles, hard battles on the track. We've raced some super late model stuff. We've even tied a race before in a super late model for the win. So I mean, he's unbelievable too. I mean, he's a great driver and hard. He makes you earn everything. So it's cool to have kind of grown up watching him and now compete every week for him, whether it's at Thunder Road or at Richmond this past weekend.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on with us tonight, Joey, and congratulations on the win. Congratulations on good luck to you on the rest of the 2019 season.
Hey, I really appreciate you guys having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. So Joey Pohl, great interview there. A lot of fun to have him on. Big win for him in Richmond there. I think it's really cool how the ACT is going down to these bigger tracks.
I think it's good for the ACT because you know what? The ACT is never going to be really a developmental ground for drivers. You know, it's never going to be a place where those next Christopher Bells rise up through. So it's good for them to get a chance. You know, they run.
Although Christopher Bell is running an ACT race this season.
He is. They get a chance to run at New Hampshire. They get a chance to run at Richmond. It's nice. I think it's good for them to go to the bigger tracks, get some of these guys some more exposure, get some of their sponsors some more exposure.
Yeah, that was a fun race for sure, and the Memorial Day Classic isn't too far away from us here at Thunder Road. The opening race of the year for them coming at the end of May, so about 2 months out. So super excited for that. I know, I'm going to be down at Thunder Road quite a bit this summer. Super excited to watch all the local action this year. But let's get back to our discussion that we were having before Joey called in there.
Yeah, what was your lead into the question? Can you remind me of the question, Nick?
So we're going to get back to this real quickly. Dale Jr., he mentioned that he wants the championship race to be at Daytona. He wants the season to start there, season to end there. We talked about how much fun the regular season ending at Daytona will be. Do you think it should be the championship race at some point?
This is why I feel conflicted, because on one hand, yes, it's awesome. And for those watching at home, I did just put on my sweater during the interview because I got cold. Like, I got
cold
freezing, man. So it's like
Zach is chilling us out in here.
So I muted my mic and I put on my sweatshirt. Anyway, smooth transition. Didn't even notice a thing. I think it's a great idea in practice, or in theory it's a great idea, but in practice, is it really?
Yeah.
Because you know what Kyle Busch has said about, those stupid restrictor plate tracks, not real racing.
Kyle Busch would throw a fit if he lost.
You could have a driver who wins the first Daytona or a Talladega race, and then wins, points his way in through the first 3 races, and then wins at Talladega again. You could legitimately have a fluke champion if you did it like that.
Yeah.
With that being said, under a roving schedule where it changes every couple of years, fine, do it. I think we do it. But I'm just going to say, I don't want to say put an asterisk on that trophy, but kind of have to if it's, Daytona to Daytona.
Yeah. So let's get into the week's news here. A lot happened off the track this week. Darrell Waltrip, and probably the biggest story, still rumors at this point, but it's Adam Stern reported it, so that is, we think that's pretty, pretty certain. Usually when Adam Stern catches up on something, he's not wrong.
If Adam Stern says it happened, basically.
He said Darrell Waltrip is considering retirement from the NASCAR on Fox team after this season. Thoughts on that? Who would you want? Now, if DW does retire, who would you want to see in that booth?
I don't know who I want to see in that booth. Thinking about it, Kevin Harvick is a good replacement.
Harvick would be cool.
Can we have Dale Jr. do both? I don't think the problem is Dale Waltrip. I think the problem is Jeff Gordon. I don't like Jeff Gordon in the booth. I really don't.
Yeah, Jeff Gordon's not fun.
I would love to see them put Larry McReynolds back into the booth for starters, even if it's a 1-year bridge, but I don't know who I'd want to see besides DW. There's not really any voices that are rising up through the ranks that I look at and say, oh, yeah, I want him to replace him.
Wow, thanks, Dustin. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it sucks to suck, doesn't it, Nick? Good.
No, I agree with you. I think that they need to put Larry Mack in there. I think Jeff Gordon would thrive in a role similar to what NBC does with Steve Letarte. It's kind of put him down on pit road with the pit box, have him, go through, what the guys are going through on pit road and, in the car, kind of like a lead pit reporter kind of thing, but kind of advanced from that. Gordon's not great in the booth, and it's been kind of obvious ever since they took Larry Mack out. Fox's coverage has gone way down.
Yeah, and you look at something, you think Kevin Harvick is one of the guys. I don't like Kevin Harvick. He just feels bland to me in the booth, and he might get better when he's full time in that booth.
I think Harvick is better suited for a business role in NASCAR.
Yeah,
he's too smart to be an analyst, if that's possible.
Well, I think he would work well if you put Larry McReynolds next to him, right? They put Austin Dillon. Brad Keselowski would be great, but Brad Keselowski's still a couple years out from retirement.
Yeah.
All the people that I would want to retire to replace Darrell Waltrip are people who, are already, have a couple years. Clint Boyer might be good in that booth spot.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to happen.
What about Carl Edwards?
I think Carl Edwards has left NASCAR behind and has happily left NASCAR behind. Okay. And I don't think he wants to do it.
So, speaking of color commentators or analysts on NASCAR broadcasts as we make this segue here. Harrison Burton, son of Jeff Burton, will race in 8 Xfinity races this year for Joe Gibbs Racing, starting at Bristol this week. Does he deserve this? And what's the future look like for JGR right now?
I want to go back to the last point. Regan Smith would be great in the booth.
Regan Smith has been good.
I like Regan Smith or Ricky Craven. They could always throw Ricky Craven.
Craven's very underrated.
But anyway.
Harrison Burton.
Harrison Burton. So we were talking about this off air because I've always been one of those guys who wants to do more development than the other. I don't think he's ready for an Xfinity start. But with that being said, I think it's good to get him into the car for 8 races. You'll get a chance to see how he does. 8-race tryout. I think JGR is trying a lot of 8-race tryouts right now. You have, who else is in that car this year? You have Jeffrey Earnhardt in that car. You have one other guy.
Kyle Busch.
But there's one other guy in that car who's a young guy.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Let me look for that while you talk.
You look at it, I think Joe Gibbs is going to need development drivers for next year because I don't think Christopher Bell is going to be back in that ride next year. I think that's almost a guarantee. I would be very surprised to see Brandon Jones go back for a 3rd year at an Xfinity team. If you're with a team for 3 years in the Xfinity series, you're pretty much an Xfinity lifer at that point, and I don't think that's what Brandon Jones
Riley
wants.
Herbst.
Yeah,
Herbsties.
I think that Joe Gibbs is going to have some seats to fill in the Xfinity Series next year. So I think it's time that they bring up these Todd Gillens and Harrison Burtons because I think those are probably going to be your drivers.
Well, I think you look at their lineup right now. So let's just pencil in Brandon Jones for a 3rd year. I don't think he's going to leave. He brings the sponsorship. He's done actually relatively okay in that 19 ride this year.
Yeah.
So let's pencil him in. At that point, you need to fill in the 18. You need to fill in the 20. The 20 is normally a full-time ride. So who do you put in that 20 car? Do you put Burton in that 20 car? I think you give him the 8-race tryout to see. Yeah. Do you give Jeffrey Earnhardt some more races? It seems like IK9 has really signed up a lot for...
they've been all over the place with Joe Gibbs.
Which is good that, on one hand, I don't like Kyle Busch winning. On the other hand, it's nice to see him get that sponsor in the victory lane a couple times. Yeah. So I think the 18 will be reserved for the All-Star car. So the question is, who's going to get that 20 car? And we're going to see Riley Herbst do a couple races in the 18. We're seeing Jeffrey Earnhardt. We're seeing, Burton now. I think it's going to be a test case of, all right, who is the most impressive guy that we can eventually put into this car? Because I don't think Joe Gibbs wants to run 2 cars that are All-Star cars, basically.
Yeah.
I think they want to run 2 full-time cars and an All-Star car. So we'll see.
I think that those are the guys that are going to be competing for that 20 car next year.
And you look at the truck series of drivers. You have DGR Crossley, who's got a couple of young guns. You have Kyle Busch Racing that's got Burton and Gilliland. Who do you send up? Maybe you send Gilliland up. But then again, I think Harrison Burton is a part of Kevin Harvick's marketing agency. Oh. So, he might not necessarily be fully tied to Toyota like some of these other guys. So
it's interesting.
It's an interesting piece.
Yep. So let's get on to some interesting. We're going to play some videos for the first time.
Yes, we are.
In this show. We have a couple of them. And, these were some really awesome clips from over the weekend, both from Saturday. The first one we're going to show is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in the history of my life at South Boston Speedway. Zach, cue it up. I think you have it in there as boom.
All right, so here we go. We got this guy.
We have a crew chief here who's very mad at
Can you pause the video right here, Zach?
He's mad at the driver because the driver of the second car in line there took out his driver. Took him out of the race. So he's going to go over and retaliate. So.
Now, remind you, this guy has no helmet on. Yeah. All right, no helmet, no safety gear.
And it's a hot track. The track is under a red flag condition.
They're still racing. This is a live race.
Yeah. And you see him take off here.
Great form on that fence jump. We got the throw. Can we stop it right there?
Throws the radio and then just let it go. And this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. The guy takes off with the guy hanging out of his window. How this guy gets up and walks away is just completely beyond me.
Let's watch it full speed again.
At first, no, we're okay. We aren't going to make Zach do. Okay,
I want to do it one more time.
Zach's just being good for us today. I just can't believe, that the guy would take off like that with the guy hanging out of your car. That seems a little bit dangerous, but I guess the crew chief was trying to rip the guy's ignition box out.
Yeah.
And so that would have obviously ended his chances at winning the race. What a moron, this guy walking out onto the track.
The guy who walked on the track, straight up banned. He needs to be banned for 5 years at the minimum.
Absolutely.
Because that is,
that's what gets people killed.
It's Kevin Ward. It's what happened to Kevin Ward on the dirt track, 5 years ago now. Tony Stewart ran over Kevin Ward, and because Kevin Ward got out of his car and charged at Tony, right? Like, that's the type of stuff that gets you killed. And at the end of the day, this is just a race, okay? The driver, I understand why he did it, because if somebody's trying to rip out your ignition box, I get it. A year suspension from that track, I would say, for pulling it out. Maybe a couple weeks on the circuit. I don't know. It's hard for me to punish.
It's tough for me to get mad at the guy who drove away, because while that is super dangerous, you have a lunatic trying to tackle you while you're trying to do your job. So that's really tough. Second video we have here is a wild finish in the K&N West Series here. Zach, let's cue up that other video between Trevor Huddleston and Tanner Gray.
At the line.
And Huddleston in the blue and orange 9 car there gets spun out as he wins the race. That was a really fun finish here.
Oh, bud.
Look at the fans in the stands right there. That place was there's more people there than Texas on Sunday.
Okay. There were more people at Texas because there's 40,000 people at Texas.
Right, but still.
Look at that. That's fun to watch. That's good racing right there. And what you don't see, because it's earlier on in the video before we cut it, the racing between those two for the last couple of laps was something to be amazed at. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Credit Fans Choice TV for that last one.
You can watch every single K&N hometown race, and I think ARCA races too on Fans Choice.
They have been awesome. Free. Yes, they are about as good as it gets out there. But that was NASCAR needs more of that. They need more short tracks. That was my reaction to that race, was # more short tracks, because those races are just so much more fun. So Bristol's coming up on Sunday, but there was a good race in Bahrain for the F1. We don't talk a lot of F1.
Crazy F1 race in
Absolutely
Bahrain.
Insane. Now, if you're an early bird on Sunday mornings, or sometimes in the middle of the night between Saturday and Sunday, F1 races on ESPN or ESPN2.
Commercial free.
Commercial free. This is fun racing to watch if you're up.
Also, F1 has the best platform video game of any. I've been playing F1 2018. So much fun.
F1's fun. So Lewis Hamilton, who's the Kyle Busch per se.
Big dog.
He's the big dog of F1. He won this race, but he didn't exactly deserve it. There's a guy by the name of Charles Leclerc, who is a Frenchman, and he became the second youngest pole sitter in F1 history. He dominates this race. This is his first season with a powerhouse team in Ferrari. Dominated the race, but then his engine let go. He was down on power for like the last 10 or so laps of this thing. He had such a big lead, it took Hamilton 7 laps to catch him. Hamilton passed him with 3 laps to go. Leclerc still finished 3rd in the race. He would have been the 3rd youngest F1 winner of all time. Just a lot of talent there. I'm really excited. I'm gonna start watching more of those races just to see this guy run, because he's very clearly a world-class talent. And it's about time that somebody is right up there with Lewis Hamilton, because Hamilton's been dominating F1 for a really long time now.
Has been.
So it would be cool to see somebody else up there.
Yeah, but F1 is always one of those things where it's about the fastest. It's about pure speed, not really racing.
Yeah. So, let's get on to our Bristol preview / fantasy picks.
Yeehaw! Here. Bristol, baby. Let's hope it doesn't rain this year.
Yeah, let's hope it does not rain at Bristol. It has rained the last 2 years.
It rains.
Each of the last 2 years, the race has been on Monday. The fall race in 2016 was on a Sunday afternoon after being delayed Saturday night.
And I'm going to level with you here,
fingers crossed.
Nick. I can't afford Bristol being delayed because it's WrestleMania weekend. So we got to get Bristol off. We got to get Bristol off from that 2 to 6 time slot.
WrestleMania.
So I watch. It's a top 10 sporting event in the entire world.
Staged.
Look it up. It's 6th. I don't care. It's like a soap opera for men. All right. I'm trashy. I get it. I watch NASCAR and wrestling. Whatever.
Okay. Dustin will be watching wrestling. I will not.
So I'm really hoping that we don't have a rain delay this year because there's nothing worse than when it has to be delayed and I have to go back.
Especially at Bristol because you just want to watch the Bristol.
It's a fun race. So I'm hoping the weather looks good.
Hoping the weather is good. So let's make our fantasy picks here, though, as we get into the last 5 minutes of the show. Last week, Dustin had a rough week. He had Logano I had Logano and Ryan Blaney, but I still beat him by quite a bit. Dustin had Brad Keselowski, who had
Keselowski just really hurt
engine
me.
problems. Kevin Harvick was just mediocre all race. Kurt Busch, same. Chase Elliott ran really well. Chase Elliott had a chance to win this one.
I told you my bold choice of Chase Elliott was going to work out. It did.
And then he finished 13th.
But it worked out.
Sure. Ricky Stenhouse was not great either. Martin Truex faded at the end. I think your highest finishing driver was like 7th or 8th.
All right, we're going to try not to suck this week.
Yeah. So Dustin, you now get the first pick for Bristol. I have a 22-point lead on you.
You're taking Kyle.
So you're taking Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch is always good here.
Kyle Busch. I am going to take Kurt Busch because Kurt Busch is always good here. Also, the reigning winner of this one. And the other driver I'm going to take is Brad Keselowski because Keselowski's been good. So I'm taking drivers 1 and 2.
I'm going to take Ryan Blaney. He's always strong here, but he never seems to be able to finish it.
last year in this race, Ryan Blaney led most of it and then got wrecked by lap cars.
Race result. Let me look it up.
Make your second pick, Dustin. We have 3.5 minutes to go.
We have plenty of time. There's 3.5 minutes. And you know what? At the end of the day, bud, the Busch brothers have won the last 3 races here.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Big money, no whammies. Awful TV, awful radio right now.
Dustin's dragging us along.
Kyle Larson finished 2nd last year, so we're going to go bold. We're taking Kyle Larson.
My 2 picks, I'm going to take a bold one here with Eric Jones.
Oh, that Jones boy.
This has been his best track, and it paid off for me to pick him last week with my last pick because he finished in the top 5. My other pick this week is going to be Kevin Harvick. As much as I kind of I feel like I'm going to regret that. I feel like Harvick's kind of due at this point. Bristol's a track that, he's usually put up some pretty good results at. So we'll go with Harvick.
So after going with Harvick, I'm perusing the results last year. I am surprised that you have not taken what's his face? Chase Elliott here. Chase Elliott is always good. I'm taking Chase.
Yeah, Chase has run really well at Bristol. Historically, I think he runs better in the fall race, though. I think he's better at that track under the lights.
And then I'm going to take Joey Logano if he's still on the board.
Yes. So my next 2 picks, I'm going to go with Eric Almirola. He's been Mr. Consistency so far this year. And Denny Hamlin, last week's winner, always a good short tracker. And Dustin, your final pick.
I'm going to take Jimmy Johnson, finished 3rd in this race last year. Of the people on the board, he's the highest. Actually, did Ryan Blaney get taken? Yes, I took Ryan Blaney.
Yes, you took Blaney.
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson's my last pick.
So that's our fantasy picks, and we're sticking to them for Bristol. This race is always really interesting because it's either super boring or it's one of the best races of the year. Spring Bristol is always interesting for sure. Dustin, the viewers can see you on your phone right now.
Finger guns.
Minute and a half, man.
Smoke bomb.
So what are you expecting? Final 30 seconds here. What are you expecting from this race?
I'm expecting a fun race with lots of crashings, a lot of comers and goers. I think this new package is going to make the corners faster, which at Bristol is going to be
so much fun.
Interesting, especially with those 2 grooves. Look for one of the best Bristol races you've seen in a while.
I'd have to agree with you. I think this race is going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to see guys like Kyle Larson. I think this is a race where Chevy has a legitimate shot to win. We talked about how right now we don't see them winning a race.
Well, airily speaking, error is not going to be as big of a concern.
Right.
So it's going to be about raw speed.
Yeah, so we will see how that one goes. Super excited for Bristol this week. Once again, thanks to Joey Polwarczyk for coming on. Congratulations to him on his win at Richmond on Saturday. That's all we have for you tonight. Dustin's threatening me with, not coming on next Monday at 7.
I didn't say threatening. I'm just saying my schedule is weird sometimes.
His schedule is weird sometimes, on the record. But we will try our best to be back Monday at 7 o'clock right here on Northwest Access TV. Thanks to Zach for doing everything in the studio once again. For Dustin, I'm Nick. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the Inside Groove on Northwest Access TV.